Modern cities are built on speed, protection, and constant vigilance. We trust walls, systems, and authority to preserve order in times of uncertainty. Yet history reminds us that long before institutions claimed this role, communities often survived through quiet figures whose strength was not visible, but steady. Their influence did not come from command, but from endurance. The story you're about to hear unfolds not in deserts or monasteries, but within a city under threat. It is the account of a woman who never ruled, never commanded armies, and never left behind written treatises, yet whose presence shaped the fate of Paris during one of its most fragile moments. Genevieve was born in the early 5th century in Nanterre, a small settlement near what would later become Paris. This region stood on the edge of transition as Roman authority weakened and the structure of the ancient world began to dissolve. Political uncertainty and social instability marked daily life, even in places far from imperial centers. From an early age, Genevieve was noted for a quiet seriousness that set her apart. Historical accounts describe no dramatic signs or public events, only a disposition inclined toward prayer and restraint. In a society shaped by survival and labor, such inward focus was unusual, especially for a young girl. A decisive moment came during a visit by Bishop Germanus of Auxerre, a prominent ecclesiastical figure of the time. Recognizing Genevieve's dedication, he encouraged her commitment to a life of consecration. This recognition did not elevate her socially, but confirmed a path of discipline and responsibility that would define her life. Genevieve embraced this calling without withdrawing from the world. She did not enter a monastery, nor did she seek isolation. Instead, her ascetic life unfolded within the rhythms of ordinary urban existence. Fasting, prayer, and simplicity shaped her days, practiced quietly among the people she lived beside. As the Roman world continued to fracture, cities like Paris faced growing vulnerability. Trade declined, defenses weakened, and fear of invasion became a constant presence. Genevieve's formative years passed under this shadow, preparing her for a form of endurance that would later prove essential not only for herself, but for the city as a whole. Her early life reveals no ambition and no desire for influence. Authority would come to her not through position, but through trust. In a time when certainty was rare, consistency itself became a form of strength. Genevieve's commitment to ascetic discipline matured within the ordinary life of the city. Unlike monks of the desert, she remained among her people, practicing fasting, prayer, and simplicity without withdrawing from daily responsibilities. Her path was shaped by constancy rather than spectacle, and her discipline unfolded quietly within a changing urban landscape. Asceticism in a city required a different kind of endurance. Noise, scarcity, and social pressure surrounded daily life. Genevieve's restraint stood in contrast to the uncertainty of her environment. She adopted a rhythm of prayer and fasting that ordered her days, creating interior stability where external order was increasingly fragile. As Roman authority declined further, Paris became more exposed to threat. News of invasions and unrest circulated widely, shaping collective anxiety. In this context, Genevieve's presence gained significance. Her discipline did not remove fear, but offered an alternative response to it, grounded in perseverance rather than panic. Her influence grew gradually, not through public declarations, but through trust. People observed her consistency over time. In moments of uncertainty, they sought her counsel and prayer. This authority was informal and relational, rooted in shared experience rather than imposed hierarchy. Genevieve also expressed her ascetic commitment through acts of practical care. Historical accounts note her concern for the poor and vulnerable, especially during periods of scarcity. These actions were not organized programs, but responses shaped by attentiveness to immediate need within the community. Fasting for Genevieve was never isolated from responsibility. Her discipline did not detach her from others, but sharpened her awareness of suffering around her. This integration of prayer and service reinforced the credibility of her life, aligning inner devotion with visible care. As her reputation spread, opposition also emerged. Some questioned her influence and motives, reflecting broader tensions within a society under strain. Such resistance was not unusual for figures whose authority operated outside established structures. Genevieve responded not with defense, but with continued restraint. Her response to criticism revealed the depth of her formation. She did not withdraw or assert herself publicly. Instead, she remained present, allowing time and consistency to speak on her behalf. Over time, suspicion gave way to recognition, as her life proved stable amid ongoing uncertainty. This period marked a quiet consolidation of Genevieve's role within Paris. Without formal office or title, she became a point of moral reference. Her ascetic life, lived openly but without display, offered a model of endurance suited to a city navigating decline and threat. By the mid-5th century, Paris stood increasingly exposed to external danger. The weakening of Roman defenses left cities vulnerable to invasion, and news of advancing forces spread fear among the population. Survival depended not only on walls or soldiers, but on the ability of communities to remain unified under pressure. Among the threats faced by Paris was the advance of Attila and the Huns. As reports of destruction reached the city, panic intensified. Many prepared to flee, believing resistance to be futile. In this atmosphere of fear, Genevieve's voice emerged with unusual clarity, not through command, but through calm persistence. She urged the people not to abandon the city, encouraging prayer, fasting, and trust rather than flight. Her response did not deny the reality of danger, nor did it promise protection through force. Instead, it redirected collective fear towards spiritual endurance, reinforcing cohesion at a moment when fragmentation seemed inevitable. Genevieve's influence during this crisis rested on credibility earned over decades. Her ascetic life had demonstrated consistency through hardship, giving weight to her counsel. People listened not because she claimed authority, but because her presence had proven reliable when circumstances deteriorated. Historical tradition records that Paris was spared from destruction, whether through strategic decisions, changes in military direction, or providential circumstance. The city remained intact. Within the collective memory, Genevieve's call to remain steadfast became inseparable from this outcome, shaping her lasting association with the city's preservation. Following the crisis, Genevieve continued her quiet service. She organized relief during periods of famine, securing food supplies for the population and coordinating aid for prisoners. These actions were practical extensions of her ascetic commitment, linking prayer directly to responsibility within the community. Her relationship with civic and religious leaders reflected mutual respect rather than rivalry. Genevieve did not challenge authority, nor did she operate independently of it. Instead, her role complemented existing structures, offering moral stability while others managed political and administrative demands. As Paris slowly transitioned into a new historical era, Genevieve remained a constant presence. Her life did not change dramatically after the crisis. The same disciplines of fasting, prayer, and service continued, reinforcing the pattern that had shaped her influence from the beginning. In a time defined by uncertainty, Genevieve's leadership revealed a different form of strength. It was not exercised through visibility or control, but through patience, endurance, and a refusal to surrender to fear. This form of authority would define her legacy long after the immediate dangers had passed. In her later years, Genevieve's life did not shift toward withdrawal or public recognition. She remained within the city she had served for decades, continuing the same disciplines that had shaped her influence from the beginning. Prayer, fasting, and care for the vulnerable remained constant, even as Paris entered a new phase of political and social transformation. Her authority never became institutional. Genevieve held no official position within civic or ecclesiastical structures, yet her presence was widely respected. Leaders consulted her not for strategy, but for discernment. This distinction preserved the integrity of her role, keeping it rooted in spiritual credibility rather than administrative power. Historical accounts describe her involvement in acts of mercy during periods of scarcity. She organized assistance for the poor, arranged for the distribution of food, and intervened on behalf of prisoners. These actions reflected continuity rather than expansion, reinforcing the integration of ascetic discipline with practical responsibility. Genevieve fell asleep in the Lord around the year 502. Her death marked the end of a life lived without traumatic transitions. There was no final gesture meant to secure remembrance. Instead, her legacy had already taken shape through decades of consistency, patience, and restraint within the ordinary life of the city. Following her repose, veneration developed naturally among the people of Paris. Memory preserved not an image of spectacle, but of presence. She was remembered as one who remained when others fled, who endured when structures weakened, and who embodied stability during periods of profound uncertainty. Because her life unfolded before the divisions that later separated East and West, her sanctity is fully embraced within the Orthodox tradition. She is honored not as a local curiosity, but as a witness to Orthodox life lived beyond monasteries, within the complexity of urban existence. Genevieve's legacy challenges common assumptions about spiritual authority. She did not withdraw to the desert, nor did she govern institutions. Her sanctity emerged through presence, perseverance, and restraint. In times of collapse and fear, she offered continuity rather than solutions, and endurance rather than control. Her life reminds us that faith does not always manifest through dramatic acts. Sometimes it is expressed through remaining where one is needed, sustaining prayer when fear spreads, and holding communities together through quiet consistency. Such lives often pass unnoticed in their time, yet leave foundations that endure for centuries. If this documentary helped illuminate a quieter form of sanctity, consider subscribing to the channel. Here, we continue to explore the lives of Orthodox saints whose faith was lived not through spectacle, but through endurance, humility, and unwavering presence across history.